first government job was actually relatively recently, so I came to government relatively late in life. It was with the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, and I joined them in 2004. And interesting circumstances there. I'd been working with that organization in the private sector as a consultant and kind of got to know the organization. And around that same time, their CIO departed, so they actually approached me with an offer I found I couldn't refuse in terms of becoming the CIO there at NCIS. And that was a very interesting experience. I'd worked for the government as a consultant for about 11 years prior to that. So certainly I was familiar with the federal space, knew kind of the challenges that the federal space represents in terms of personnel acquisition, the proverbial bureaucracy and everything else, and so that aspect of joining the federal government was something that didn't come as much of a surprise to me, but certainly actually being in a position to operate in that environment and have some meaningful impact on how things get done, to be able to make some decisions, to be able to set some direction for an organization, that was a very rewarding experience, and that's not one that you can get in the private sector working as a consultant to the federal government. And that was part of what motivated me to make that change, was the opportunity to have more of a tangible impact on the way the government does business, thinks about IT, and evolves IT to position themselves better for the future. I would say trying a lot of different things. My training, formally, educationally, was in chemical engineering. So ending up being a CIO was not the most obvious career path, and it's certainly not one I would have predicted when I got out of school. I thought at the time that I wanted to do chemical engineering. That's what I'd studied. That's what I loved, and started out when I first entered the work environment doing chemical engineering. But a number of opportunities presented themselves to get involved in different things around working on issues like base closure and working on more management consulting type challenges. And I think being open to tackling those kinds of challenges, thinking about doing different things that were outside of my comfort zone, opened up a lot of opportunities that I would not have otherwise had or found. And so I think just that openness to tackling new problems, thinking about different challenges that were not necessarily ones that I'd trained for or were very comfortable with, again, created a lot of opportunities for me professionally. If you're not overwhelmed, you're probably not challenging yourself enough. That's something that I've found throughout my career, that if you're pushing yourself, you'll feel overwhelmed, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can certainly be a little bit daunting to be in a position where you are dealing with challenges and addressing things that feel a little bit out of your depth. And so the most important thing that I've found is to find a mentor or mentors with whom you can have confident and confidential conversations about how you feel and the challenges you're facing, and how they can help you get over some of that imposing challenge that you face. And whether it's within the context of a formal mentoring program, or just finding a colleague or a supervisor or someone else in a leadership position that you can engage with and that can provide that kind of guidance, I think that's a great resource to help get over some of that daunting, overwhelming feeling that you will at some point almost certainly have in your career. I would probably say it came from my wife when I made the transition from industry to government. She had been in government, at that time, probably in one form or another for a while. And so she was very familiar with working in government. She knew what kind of impact you could have as a government employee. And I was very much struggling with whether I should make the change from industry to government, because I'd worked at my company for 8.5 years. I had a community there. It was a comfortable situation. But this also was an opportunity to do something different and to have an impact. And I was very much on the fence there and struggling with the decision as to which way to go. And ultimately, she gave me the nudge to go to government, and that was certainly the right decision. And I certainly haven't regretted it in the 7.5 years since that I've been in government. So that was probably the most critical piece of career advice that I got in terms of just getting me over that difficult point of making the decision to join government, to do something different. It is a rewarding experience. So, for those of us who've worked around the federal government for a while, the opportunity to engage in the business of government and the mission of government, and to have a meaningful contribution to that mission and an impact on the way the government does business, it's a very rewarding experience. And it's hard to describe if you haven't necessarily experienced it. But the whole notion of public service is still a very compelling draw for me, at least, and I think for a lot of younger people, that they can in fact serve their government, serve their country, make a tangible difference, and it's an impact that you won't get elsewhere, and it's a reward that goes well beyond the more traditional professional rewards of just advancement and salary and some other things. It's a much more intangible but also very meaningful sense of impact and accomplishment that you can make within the federal government.